evening and welcome, excuse me. Good evening and welcome to tonight's school board meeting. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Oh, sorry. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Romano, roll call.
Mrs. Brinkman,
Present.
Mr. Rudy,
Present.
Mr. Schaaf,
Present.
Mrs. Delaney,
Present.
Mr. Chumley,
Present.
all present.
Do we have any public cards this evening?
I do not have any.
We have none. Okay. Moving on to approval of minutes, Mr. Romano.
Sure. Item number 2.01 would be the minutes for the meeting, the last meeting that was held. That would be on August 3rd. Request approval of those minutes.
You've heard the recommendation of the treasurer. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Mrs. Delaney?
Second.
Mr. Chumley? Discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Mrs. Delaney,
Yes.
Mr. Chumley,
Yes.
Mrs. Brinkman,
Yes,
Mr. Rudy,
Yes.
Mr. Schaaf.
Yes.
5 yes.
motion approved. Moving on to treasurer's business, Mr. Romano.
Thank you. Item number 4.01 is a list of donations. We have 2 of them this evening. The first one is from Holly Schmidt, donated $1,500 for the purchase of books for the district's libraries. And the second one is from West Clermont High School PTSO, donated the proceeds from their 2019 West Clermont High School golf outing. That is in the amount of $4,443.73 to the West Clermont High School to be used for student recognition programs and for scholarships. So recommended.
You've heard the recommendation of the treasurer. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Mr. Rudy, and a second.
Second.
Mr. Schaaf. Discussion? Mr. Romano, you will send out a thank you note to each of those donors.
I'm sorry?
You'll send out a thank you card on behalf of us?
We will do that.
Thank
Yes,
you.
following the meeting. Thank you.
No further discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Rudy,
Yes.
Mr. Schaaf,
Yes.
Mrs. Brinkman,
Yes,
Mrs. Delaney,
Yes.
Mr. Chumley.
Yes.
5 yes.
motion approved.
Item 4.02 is a resolution. This is a recommendation on the board. This is for establishing a 457B agreement for them to be our administrator. We currently do have a 403B. Voya is doing that for us, and we're asking that we establish the 457 program, and they would be the same administrators of that program for us.
Do you give recommendation for that?
It is so recommended, sorry.
That's right. You've heard the recommendation of the treasurer. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Mr. Schaaf. And a second?
Second.
Mr. Delaney. Mrs. Delaney. Discussion?
So what is the 457B?
The 457 is a government deferred compensation plan, similar but not the same as a 403B, but it gives the employees another option to tax defer their compensation.
Question asked by the IRS guy.
I was going to mention that.
I knew the answer. I was just
That's all right, that's good.
asking the question.
I'm glad you did because I didn't know.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, roll call.
Mr. Schaaf?
Yes.
Mrs. Delaney?
Yes.
Mrs. Brinkman?
Yes,
Mr. Rudy?
Yes.
Mr. Chumley?
Yes.
5 yes.
motion approved.
And item number 403, that would be the June financial statements. Those were presented to the board. Be recommended that those financial reports and statements be approved.
You've heard the recommendation of the treasurer. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
And a second? Mr. Chumley, discussion?
So our ending, this is the end of the fiscal year,
That was right,
correct?
the end of June 30th, that's correct.
And we ended with unencumbered fund balance of $12,437,000
And that was for all funds,
for all funds, yeah.
correct.
But, and then I see for the on the five-year forecast page. It's,
For the general
for
fund.
the general fund, it was just 7,
7 million, that was a little bit higher than projected,
okay,
but we'll take it.
yeah, yes, we will. Okay,
Anything further? Roll call, please.
Thank you. Mr. Schaff?
yes,
Mr. Chumley?
Yes.
Mrs. Brinkman?
Yes,
Mr. Rudy?
Yes.
Mrs. Delaney?
Yes.
5 yes.
motion approved.
Item number 4.04, the financial statements, bills paid list, and investments for July. The July is our first month of the new fiscal year. Both the receipts and expenses were pretty much as expected for that first month.
Okay.
Recommended as, or so recommended.
You've heard the recommendation of the treasurer. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Mr. Rudy, and a second?
second,
Mr. Schaff. Discussion? Roll call?
Mr. Rudy?
Yes.
Mr. Schaff?
yes,
Mrs. Delaney?
Yes.
Mr. Chumley?
Yes.
Mrs. Brinkman?
Yes,
5 yes.
motion approved.
Thank you. I have no comments as of this time. Again, second week here, excited to be here and looking forward.
Thank you. Mrs. Adams, Superintendent's Business.
Dr. Fultz is going to give our personnel item 5.01.
Good evening, members of the board, Mrs. Adams, Mr. Romano. In front of you is the personnel agenda for August 17th, 2020. On the agenda today, we have the resignation of our Sarah Walters, our 11-month attendance secretary. We also have, the agenda also includes the proposed hiring of 2 part-time paraprofessional aides, a salary adjustment for our cafeteria manager, Ellen Irick. She's moving from 5 to 8 hours a day, and that's working at the Carter Center, which is supported by Child Focus, Child Focus, my apologies. The agenda also includes proposed approval for supplemental contracts for coaches. Mitchell Farmer was a second assistant. He's taking the place of Sean Abin-Massive, who moved to Louisville, so they're moving from second assistant to first assistant. Claire Smalley, we're excited that James Collins came to me about a week and a half ago and said, we have enough girls tennis for a JV team. We have enough girls.
Yay.
So he's like, if I can, and I'm like, yes, James, if you can get a schedule put together for other JVs, we want to build our girls tennis. And so Claire Smalley will be taking that on as well.
Nice.
And then supplemental for a middle school, we finally had his pupil activity permit granted, so we were able to get him on there. We have home tutors. We also have 4 student teachers. Even though we're going through this right now with the pandemic, we're still working with our colleges and universities on doing some type of student-teacher program, the best we can do for them as they try to grow and learn how to be our next generation of teachers. And then finally, for your approval is the stipend list, and it includes all the new teacher orientation, the 2 days that we worked with them. It was very interesting doing a new teacher orientation via Google Hangout and then trying to make sure that we answer all their questions. They were great. They were great. A lot of great questions. So I respectfully request that you approve the personnel agenda as submitted.
You've heard the recommendation of Dr. Fultz. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Mrs. Delaney, and seconded by Mr. Chumley. Discussion? Roll call?
Mrs. Delaney?
Yes.
Mr. Chumley?
Yes.
Mrs. Brinkman?
Yes,
Mr. Rudy?
Yes.
Mr. Schaff?
yes.
5 yes.
motion approved.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Fultz.
Item 5.02 is the policy approval for new and revised policies. We brought this to you earlier in the month. It's a policy for protective facial coverings during the pandemic, policy 8450.01. A revised attendance policy 5200 to address all the different types of attendance issues and medical excuses and things like that that will be unique to our new setting. And policy 3220 is OTES, the teacher-based evaluation system. That is a special update. It will not go into effect this year. It's a year out. And so I'm asking that you approve the policies as presented.
You've heard the recommendation of the superintendent. I'll put that on the floor in the form of a motion and ask for a second.
Second?
Mrs. Delaney. Discussion? Roll call?
Mrs. Brinkman,
Yes?
Mrs. Delaney,
Yes.
Mr. Rudy,
Yes.
Mr. Schaff,
Yes.
Mr. Chumley.
Yes.
5 yes.
Motion approved?
Item 5.03 is the Clough Pike Elementary renovation update, and we are happy to have this evening, Mr. Perry is going to come and speak on behalf of he and Mr. Dyer and all the work they've been doing at Clough. And we are excited to also, promote the ribbon cutting ceremony we're having this week. So it's exciting.
Good evening, Mrs. Adams, Mr. Romano, members of the board. So we're here to talk about the last update for the Clough Pike renovation, 2 days before the ribbon cutting, so hopefully you'll be satisfied and happy with the pictures because we're 99% complete. So our first slide here, I was just going to show, looking back on June 15th, the last time we presented, just showing some of the work that was done at the time, but work that still remained to be done. A lot can be accomplished in a handful of weeks. So here we are with the sign out front. Took a picture of this because I love the fact that we're being consistent with all our new schools with the signage and the LED there. And also wanted to highlight, I got a couple questions, is this one larger than the others? And the answer is no, it's just closer to the road. So it appears that way. But I got that question actually a few times. But anyway. Sticking with the exterior, just highlighting here the new windows that went in all the way around the building. You can see a section of the canopy. Also notice that the flag is lit, which is wonderful, and it looks really good. Dennis Vance, our head custodian, the day I dropped off the flag, he got it up because he just loved the fact that night when it lights up, it looks really great. In addition to that, wanted to highlight the name of the school there on the side, very classic look. So everybody's been very pleased with that. As you pull up, it looks very clean. Again, sticking with the exterior, took a picture of the parking lot. I know that's not something that's very fun, but it looks really nice. And also, principal factor was over the moon that we were able to add 20 additional parking spots. So he thought that was great. But again, just sending the message of it is a renovation, but it's a dramatic look as we continue to look forward at some of these other slides. On the right-hand side there is the new playground and Gaga pit. Again, just looks great. Can't wait to actually see kids playing on it. But this really is a nice little facelift to the building. And if you recall, the front left corner of the playground is actually where we used to have quite a drainage problem where water would hold. So that's all been fixed during this renovation, which is great news. Moving to the interior. Went to go around and take pictures, and looky there, teachers have begun to move in. As you can see, I took a picture of one classroom where the teacher hasn't been in yet, but that their items are sitting there waiting on them. And then as you can see with a couple of the other pictures, we've had teachers in on a daily basis now, coming in and setting up their classrooms. I was there today, engaged with a few teachers. Everybody's very excited, very happy with the way things look, very excited to get after it. And always got few times got the classic question, are we getting any more storage? But anyway. Moving on here, just taking again a picture of the gymnasium with the floor has been painted, ready for business. Looks great, nice and clean. The windows, a lot of natural light in that area, and that looks great. 21st century gymnasium for that school, and they're very excited to have it. Down on the lower corner, I just took a picture of a hallway. That was Thursday, I believe, so you can see that there's nothing in the hallways. We are actively unpacking and moving in and doing different things, and wanted to highlight the tack strips, corkboard strips there on the walls. Teachers are very excited to see that consistently throughout the building and in their classrooms. This is a picture of one of the hallways of the floors that is original to the building, but I wanted to highlight Mr. Dennis Vance. He is our head custodian at Clough Pike. He has been working diligently and it takes such pride in the way that that building looks that he was so proud of these floors and the way they turned out. I mean, he spent a lot of time and effort he wanted them to really wow people when they came in. So I saw him today and I told him, I said, I'm gonna have a slide dedicated to you. So if you're watching right now, Dennis, nice work. It looks great.
So that floor is original, that's not
Yeah.
new install.
That's correct.
That's
This is
really
the 50s terrazzo.
Terrazzo.
He did a great job.
You
Yeah,
can
he
see
did.
your face in it when you
Yeah.
look. I mean,
Yeah.
it is pretty incredible.
Yeah, it is, I mean, it's like glass. He did an amazing job, took his time and did it right, and he's just so proud of it.
As he should be.
As he should be, absolutely. It shows that he cares about his work.
Is it unusual that flooring lasts that long and stays in that good a shape?
Well, that flooring, yes. Because it's pretty much concrete with coloring and then accented chips in it. It's just about indestructible.
And it's always been, I mean, the staff that was there when my kids were there, it was
Yeah.
always, it was never that shiny, but it was always shiny.
Yeah, at this time, I'd like to tip my hat as well to Graybach, because Dennis was in there working as late April. So we've been working around vendors and with Graybach hand in hand for months now, and they worked so well together. And for the floors, even though those might have been done, a couple of months ago even, for them to be in the shape that they're in was really respectful by Graybach and the contractors to treat it with the level of respect to keep it looking like that. And that was awesome. That was really nice of them. So, very excited. Dennis is very excited for Wednesday, so be sure if you see him and say something about his hallways, you might see him grin a little bit wider than I've ever seen a human being grin. At this time, just want to highlight that the ribbon cutting ceremony is Wednesday, the 19th, 2 days. It is at 9 a.m. As we've communicated that the ceremony will be live streamed and recorded. Unfortunately, outside of the dignitaries, there will not be public presence. We will be having the ceremony on the stage and in the cafeteria area. And face coverings will be required, and we will be monitoring and keeping proper social distancing. So after the ceremony is over, more than welcome to walk everybody around to see some of the details in the building after that. But unfortunately, like I said, we're not going to be able to do a whole public tours, etc. One thing we are going to provide is that the invitations which were mailed, we have extra copies of those, and also we're going to have extra red ribbon that each family can take with them when they come in during the open houses, etc., as a takeaway, because of the fact that unfortunately we can't allow them to come to it. So we tried to give them some type of takeaway. So
And then the
that's what
student
we'll
one too. The student ceremonies and the.
Oh, yes. So part of the ribbon cutting, part of the agenda is Mr. Thacker identified 4 students, and we went and recorded their reaction and excitement for coming back into the building, so we will be playing that. And then eventually, maybe not as early as Wednesday, but as soon as we can, we're actually going to do a virtual tour of the building and then post that online as well. So that'll be coming.
And Mr. Thacker will be working with his staff to do miniature versions. One of our favorite things of the ribbon cutting last year were the kids being able to be a part of that. So they're going to set up those in classrooms with some ribbon that Mr. Perry has gotten for the kids, so they can have their special moment.
We're trying to take the extra mile for them. We know it's unique, but we're trying.
Well, and I'll interrupt and say one more thing. When he was showing the floors, this would have been a good time to say that the green in those floors were used as part of the color scheme. We set up the school to look like Summerside and Willowville, in that you can see hints of West Clermont High School in there. You see that color scheme. You see the same kind of furniture that we use there on purpose. What's unique to Clough is the cafeteria has the red cougar coloring scheme, as well as the gym. And then in
wanna
the
go back?
common areas, you'll see that we picked up
You
that
done?
green in there, in that, that
You done?
traditional floor that Dennis has done such a great job on. And there's hints of that green with the blue, with a little bit of that cougar kind of color in there that is unique to Clough.
Nice.
Thank you, Lance.
So, any questions? Sorry, I was having problems there getting to my questions slides. You can't skip that.
What's a Gaga pit?
Oh,
Oh, don't spoil it. We'll play on Wednesday, after the tour.
It is it's a very popular game that the kids love to play, where they there's a ball and then like so many of them inside. Unfortunately, not during this time, we actually can't play it, but from what I understood, they learned it at like camp or something, and then it just took off like wildfire the past like 5 or 6 years especially.
Is that what the wooden gated area was?
Yes.
It's not a playpen.
It's not the timeout.
Yeah,
Yeah, I was gonna say, I got that.
yeah, it's not an area for timeout either. It's actually,
It's not the cougar pit.
there you
Could
go.
have two purposes, though.
You're ruining it, Mr. White.
so it's supposed to be a nice day Wednesday. Is there a chance to have anything outside or, I mean,
Have
ribbon,
anything outside.
like actually cutting the ribbon to walk into the building, or are we just gonna cut the ribbon on the stage like we
At
did
this
it?
point in time, everything that is being recorded and streamed will have to be on the stage live, because we have it all set up for that.
Okay.
We did look into maybe having the ceremony outside and stream, outside of, well, weather being one question. It also, there was questions about, could we get the technology to set up, and if, there was just more questions there. So the safe bet was just move it inside, where we can control all aspects and move forward.
Is there gonna be cake there since it's my birthday?
You might be able to work something out.
On the outside, on the exterior, the front of the building, so if you're facing the front of the building on the right-hand side where the Clough Pike Elementary is, are
Yes.
they gonna put landscaping there, or is it gonna be plain like it was before?
Right now, the plan is we are gonna add some landscaping beside the entrance, which is not there right now. They're talking about adding it as early as tomorrow,
Okay.
but that seems to be the extent.
Okay, that's the way it was before.
Yeah, but if it's not there for Wednesday, just know we do plan on to dress up the entrance in particular.
Okay. Yeah, I know the right-hand side of that alcove as you walk in, that ended up being kind of a science class project that Mrs. Testa put together years ago. I'm dating myself. So, yeah, I don't know if that was going to be something they might do again.
Well, and before Lance sits down, I want to just call to everyone's attention. It's become so normal here to like open up a school every year or every other year that it's like we underestimate really the work and the level of detail. I mean, Lance's ability to plan and execute just the shift from Brandner and having the box, I mean, the teachers walk in, boom, everything is there. There's not a box missing, like everything shifted from point A to point B beautifully. And it's overwhelming. I mean, just coming back to a school year is overwhelming. Coming to a brand new school where you normally like reached over here to grab your pencil sharpener and now it's maybe over here is a shift. And then you add COVID-19 responsive kind of planning. I mean, these staff members they have their work cut out for them. And just being there today, Mr. Thacker is a little bit stressed. And Mrs. Little is a little bit stressed. And Dennis is smiling from ear to ear and just hustling all over that school. Like, they have been a dynamic team that are now opening up and expanding their team. So luckily, there's some more hands there. But it's incredible what they have done in the time. And we just underestimate it because we're just so used to, like, opening new schools. Like, it's what we do here in West Clermont. So I'm grateful for Lance's leadership, Ed's leadership, and the whole team, not to mention all the companies that we've contracted with. I mean, they've been phenomenal, and certainly we'll celebrate them on Wednesday. But I just had to pause to say that because I think I take it for granted on just how amazingly smoothly this goes. But it's not without hours of detail and planning and just really excellent craftsmanship.
And that brings up something I probably should have mentioned, and I appreciate Mrs. Adams saying what she did. The transition from Brantner back to Clough, or Clough to Clough, or however, whatever that is. So the plan was that we would provide skids in every classroom, and then we would stack the boxes from the classroom on a skid and then shrink wrap it with their name on it, so then it was just like, this is their thing. And that's what we did, and it was executed very well. But what I'd like to highlight is, that was such a team effort, not only by the custodians and the maintenance staff, because they actually moved 92 skids in a day and a half. And we actually pulled a custodian from every single building to help unskid move the boxes from the hallways into the rooms, so that the teachers would come in and their boxes were actually in the rooms. And so the team, district-wide, came together to get that done. And that was actually done by volunteer. I asked for volunteers from preferred one from every building, and every building had a volunteer that wanted to help. And in a day and a half, with moving literally from, like I said, from Clough to Clough with all their stuff, and then the teachers coming in, their stuff just sitting there, was the right message to send when they came in.
You know, and to add to what you just said there, I'm very proud of that happening. Probably 5 or 6 years ago, you had the east side of the district and the west side, and it was a big divide between the two sides. And how far we've come from those days of being very isolated and supporting just our side to coming together and supporting the neighbor, because we are one district, one community. So kudos to you for making that happen. That's outstanding.
It was a great moment. It
Yep.
was.
That's good.
Thank you.
And to give the teachers some sense of normalcy in an unnormal time, but having those boxes already in there for them, was
Well,
great.
We did have that discussion, like, what can we do to help ease? Because we also didn't know when teachers could get in to get to the room, so how can we ease that pain as much as possible? So putting the boxes in the rooms, trying to, take just another layer off. And then for me, my opinion is, when you walked into the school after we did all that, you looked down the hallways and you didn't see boxes of stuff everywhere. So it was almost like, again, a mental thing of, you're a step closer to completion. And now when we see teachers in there, and again, the staff's been great. I mean, they did a great job packing up, following the instructions, did everything we asked them to. And then today, like I said, ran into quite a few of them. Their attitude's great. They're excited about it. It was just a good day. It really was.
Wonderful.
And thank you for all of your hard work.
Yes.
You and Mr. Dyer. Couldn't do it without you.
Thank you. Indeed. Thank you.
Okay, well, up next, another update on our reentry planning. Oh, thanks. I can drive my own car here today. Let's see, where should I point?
Anyway.
So, on August 15th, as we told everyone that we'd be releasing a communication that kind of gave the status of our school return plan. As we've been saying along, our efforts have been to return all in, face-to-face, 5 days a week. And we were able, in talking with the health department, to say that the conditions, even though Clermont County is in red, the conditions affecting our school district and our return and our population is a situation where, with the safety protocols in place, we're safe to return. We're okay, according to the health department. So we sent that off on Saturday to make that announcement with the disclaimer, like we're going to have to in every case, to say this could change. We have some cases in our school district right now that hopefully everyone is following what they're supposed to do and it's under control. But we're going to keep a close eye on it, because things could change even in the next 2 weeks leading up to school. So that is our reality, and that is what we're all going to have to get used to. And what I really want to emphasize with parents today is the significance of this, because I will say, when this was announced finally, there were about 25, 30 parents, families, that said, well, now that we know for sure, we want to go to the West Clermont Online Academy. And so we were working on that roster and updating. The reality is, we can change in any of those flex option plans at any time. And so the importance for families to plan ahead and be ready is vitally important, because it's gonna take a Herculean effort to all come together, follow the protocols with one another, making sure that the safety checks are taken care of at home, that we're doing everything that we can at school. But it's an all-in kind of effort. And so that's the name of that plan, All In, and it's for a reason. It takes all of us doing our part. But it could change at any time. And you'll hear in the news, you'll hear schools. I think there was one in North Carolina today. They started one day and they were out the next. And I've heard about this like all over the United States where, or maybe they're in a week and they're out. And so I'm not saying that we are planning for that to be the case. I'm just saying we are planning for everything and anything. And so I need families also thinking in that mindset to be working together as neighbors. You know, you hear of examples of families saying, well, if we have to move to remote, then our 5 families are going to work together. The kids can come to my house on Monday, this house on Tuesday, this house on Wednesday. And you kind of get this little mini micro school happening inside of a neighborhood. Those are great links, but I am hearing that people are starting to talk and to plan in that way so that people can support one another and that the economy and people going back to work can continue to happen regardless of what happens at the school. And we'll have to just keep continuing to work as a system as to like, how do we best respond? If we have to remove to remote, is it going to be the same remote as it was in the spring, or are there going to be some things that we can do here for families to support? And those are details we're still working through and brainstorming. As mentioned before, I want to just call these out, not to belabor them, but to let you know the kinds of things that we're thinking about. First of all, there won't be a vaccine before school starts. We know that. And so we can't go in with that false hope and cling to that. As a school, and I keep saying this to staff, we have 2 health crises on our hands. We have one related to the pandemic and one with children not being in school. And we are right now prioritizing children being in school as the number one thing. And it's hard for people to wrap their brain around at times because of the risks, but we're saying that there are risks and people need to know about them and they need to be aware of them, but we are planning around them and we have to be all in on our efforts here. But at this point, our children and be with teachers, to be getting a steady diet from the child nutrition team, to have the social emotional support, the socialization skills. We are prioritizing that as number one, to the best of our ability. With this pandemic, school will be different from the past, both educationally and operationally. And we keep saying, like, we crave this sense of normalcy. We want normal, we want normal. We are not coming back to a school that's normal. We are not. Our operations are tweaked on every single level. Our educational plan is tweaked on every single level. And we are learning to like ride in that whitewater and learning how to navigate those waves. And our staff, you know, they're slowly coming back, and I'll talk more about them in a little bit, and are just starting to like imagine themselves in this. I think their attitudes are amazing, they're great. But it just takes a while to wrap your brain around because we're like reaching out for people, giving them high fives or hugs or whatever. There's just certain things like we have to stop doing. West Clermont must create responsible, responsive plans to ensure health and safety of our staff and students. Guidelines will likely adjust throughout the year. So as we've shared our playbooks with all of our staff, we're saying here's what we know right now. But let's just use the mask mandate as an example. This has probably changed 10 times since June. From, is it going to be required from the state? Are we going to require it? Is it going to be 3rd grade? Is it going to be 12th grade? Is it going to be, kindergarten? Does a shield count? I mean, layers and layers and layers of iterations until the now mandate and order is out. And so from the first time we put print to paper on the mask to now, it has changed. And so that's what I mean by being reflexive and responsive to whatever lies ahead of us. And it makes you feel a little crazy. I mean, there was a conversation Mr. Overby and Dr. Fultz and I were having before we came in here, just keeping track of, now what base are we on? How many days of quarantine? There's just so many details, and it often changes. What's the temperature? It's changed by 0.4, and it's complicated. So we're trying our very best to put things in writing and make sure people are equipped to make the decisions they need to. Students and staff and parents have to prepare to move to different plans based on community and school conditions. This goes for our staff and their own families, and this goes with our families of students. There's a financial impact to changing how we operate, and we've been meeting with Mr. Romano as he's come on board, and we'll be preparing more things to share with you guys as we are putting our best foot forward to put the plans that we put into place to make them stick, to make them be things that are truly viable, that will keep us in school as long as possible. And we are certain that we are better together. And one of the things you'll see from Mr. Ryle and his team is this theme of #TogetherWC. Together we can. And so we just want to emphasize again that sense of community. We're all in this together, and what's going on in the community is certainly going to be reflected in our schools. And so it's just vitally important that all the layers of intervention be taken care of. We are driven by our values of relationships, innovation. You can go to the next slide. Being students, oh, it's me who can go to the next slide. I'm sorry, Mr. Romano. I forgot I had control of this.
got it.
Student-centered and empowerment. And we are prioritizing, of course, relationships. We want to make sure that we're connecting as adults, connecting with one another, getting everyone safe and comfortable, and then we want to transfer that over to our students. These ideas, guiding principles, it's first and foremost, whatever we do will be about our student and staff safety and wellness. This will never be Natasha, the superintendent, making a decision on an island. It will always be with expert voice, expert opinion, and all the factors taken into consideration. We're going to look at equity and inclusion, being student-centered. We're going to make sure that our quality of instruction is meeting the diverse needs of our learners. And again, we are prioritizing social, emotional, and phasing back in before we're getting into probing all the different academic needs. We're going to continuously improve what we're doing. We're going to be innovative. And that's been what's kind of happening now. There's only so many plans you can make when you're a team of administrators working out without your team in the summers. You can go so far, but you can only be so good. And it's now the staff coming in and now teaming with us, partnering with us, is helping making our plans better, and they're coming up with creative solutions. It'll be our whole community working together, and we'll certainly have to maximize our resources and prioritize. The Stop the Spread protocols, we've kind of branded them on purpose because it's a long list, but the key here is the layering, and that visual that Mr. Rao has created, although you might not be able to see it great from your chairs, it's showing that when you do first step at home, doing the COVID checks, this has to be a daily routine where all the symptoms are checked, where the temperature is taken, and everybody's assessed, because one of the best ways to protect the students and the staff is to keep kids away who aren't feeling well. So that's step one, layer one. Then you add the face covering, then you add social distancing, then you add hand hygiene and cleaning up our environment in the way that we plan to, and it's all those working together that make a difference. It's not one solution. So it's going to take morning routine, evening routines, and families to be really regimented and really disciplined. And this is really hard. I know as a mom, it's something, you start the year and you're good at it in August for the first week, and then by September, second week, you're falling apart. We have to be committed to this and helping students and families prepare. You'll see here that it's kind of hard to see because it's plexiglass, but it's a kidney bean table, a classic elementary tool for pedagogy, for learning, for small group teaching. And what Lance and his team has done is created, it has 6 little areas, little cutouts that's made of plexiglass. So our students will be able to still have their small group intervention and be able to get closer and be able to work with that added protection. This is a hallmark in elementary classrooms. It's a way that teachers are able to personalize attention to students, especially in their early literacy and early numeracy skill building times, and so that's a mitigation that they've created there. And you'll also see the floor decals there. They've been purchased across the district, but it has a professional look and a consistent look throughout all the schools to give direction to traffic, to remind people of the 6 feet distancing. So they I just share them because they've done a nice job placing those across the district, being consistent and visibly changing the environment so that people have cues. This weekend, we had a big rollout of information to families that, again, gives them their to-do list, their checklist of what are all the COVID symptoms that they need to be paying attention to, and exactly how we're going to work with the health department. There is still a lot of work to be done with the administrative assistants in the buildings, with the health clinic assistants, with the nurse, with the administrators. We've got to shore up what that triangle is going to look like. And I will tell you, today, I've been going around meeting with different groups, but one of the groups that I met with today were the health clinic aides. And I'm like, are you afraid? Are you scared? And because I'm looking at their eyes, everyone's masked up, and I'm looking at their eyes trying to read the room. And honestly, what I would say is they didn't convey a sense of panic and fear of coming back, because they are our frontline workers. I did not get that sense overwhelming, although there has to be some fear and anxiety in the room. One of the things they were concerned about is being worried about how the parents are going to react to them. because we're going to say when kids are symptomatic, they can't stay at school. And people, they know the pressures of families and commitments at work and the challenge to come and pick up a kid and just all the pieces that go into it. And I think they're a little bit worried about being the bad guys, about being the kids who are sending their kids out of school. And so I talked to them about it for a little bit and just listened to them and just trying to think how we can communicate. Again, it goes back to this all-in effort. They are going to do the very best they can. And we are going to be, we're going to err on the side of caution when we make decisions. We're going to do everything we can to protect our students and our staff. And so it's like, how can we get that triangle of the parents, the schools, and the health clinic nurses all being able to kind of work together on that? Because that was truly a fear, and I heard that today. It's important to note. I've talked, there's other kinds of fears. I'll use the custodians as an example. The protocols are pretty intense, and all the different steps they need to take. There's extra steps. Well, these guys and gals are busy all the time as it is. And especially at the beginning of the year, they're wanting to do everything in their power to help people move in, to get them situated, to make sure they're set up for a successful year. And I'm telling them, and Lance is telling them, that they're going to have to say no to people right now. They're going to have to say, I can't do that because I'm doing this over here. And so that give and take and that priority of cleanliness and hygiene and disinfectant has to rule the day from maybe the helper things that we've done before. So I don't want to say our customer service is going to fall apart and that's not important to us anymore, but they're in a situation to be prioritized, or where they have to prioritize certain things. And so just this, it's just a real human element of coming back to school and wanting to do the right things, wanting to be the best version of yourself, the best employee, knowing these COVID expectations are layered on top of you and being worried that people are going to be disappointed in your performance, or feeling like you're not doing all that you can do. And so I just thought I would share that tonight, for nothing more than just to point out that it's not so much just about getting back into the routine. It's our staff really care about their work and what they're able to do, and our students. And they just want to do well. And there's so many times where it just feels like we could fall short. It really does. And so I just keep trying to encourage them and support them and listen to them, and just say that we're going to take, put one foot in front of the other and support each other. So, long story short, these pictures here of the graphics are just tools that we're using to try to put information in the hands of parents. So this Together We Can, WSC, will be a countdown to school starting that Jeffrey and his team will lead, that you'll see on social media. Every day a different letter will be focused on, and it'll promote the things that students and staff need to do. Just trying to get it comfortable for everyone, and that they're understanding and being able to picture coming back. You also see on here, this is a West Clermont Elementary Day in the Life, but they're developing these for both the new 6th grade experience, the 7th and 8th grade, and the high school. That just will help people picture from the minute they get to the bus stop till the time they get home, the kinds of things that will feel a little bit different. And so I'm really proud of the communication efforts that Jeffrey and his team have been making. And this is all in. Administrators, everybody kind of has to have their eyes on this and be a part of it. And hopefully, with time, it'll get more and more clear to parents, and they'll be able to understand how we can all work together.
I think that's one of the most helpful things that available to the parents and the kids.
Well, good. Well, what we did is we took the playbook that the administrators created, and we pulled out of it everything that was related to kids and parents, and tried to create some documents that just spoke to them, to try to narrow it down. There's just so many things to read, and there's so many pieces of information. We're trying to streamline and simplify, but it's nothing simple.
It's wonderful.
That's all. The face coverings, as I mentioned earlier, you'll see on here just some of the things that are there are exemptions from the Ohio Department of Health on the order that was given out on August 13th. And so we are still working currently in-house to figure out the process that students are going to use if they want to become exempt. And items A through H give you reasons why you might have an exemption, such as an individual has a medical condition that restricts breathing, mental health conditions, or disability that contradicts the wearing of a face covering. And so we'll be working with those situations on a case-by-case basis. And the policy that you approved tonight will help us enforce and support this, as we've had to make changes to our student handbook and to our process. And this, the policy helps kind of back us and support us in this effort, because face coverings is just job number one of everybody. Next, we have the attendance policy. That's also something that you approved tonight. And, you know, we've just talked about attendance is not what it appears to be or like what it always has been. It's not just about looking at who's in the classroom and who's absent and who's not. There's different ways to be absent from school now. I can be physically absent and still be present because I'm still engaging with the classroom. And so, again, we're working through those details, how all the reporting will work, so that we're reporting clearly to the state. The teachers in the building have the actual correct information for if they have a fire drill or it's a safety issue or whatever, but it's just multiple layers. And so things that, you know, as a teacher you just do like you're riding a bike are gonna take some more time and some more thought. And it does distract away from core business, but this is gonna be vital. And Mr. Overby tonight will talk to you a little bit more about how attendance works for the online program, because we've been able, over the course of the last couple of weeks, to really narrow and define that so that it's clear for teachers as well as the students. So this is just a slide where I want to just pause for a minute to let you know that it's been my goal and my effort to work with our administrative team to create a path forward, a safe path that we can articulate and that we can feel proud of executing, knowing that we're doing everything that we can think of that's going to mitigate any kind of risk. I always say that there is, coming back, there is always some risk, but anything that we can think of and do, we are working to put in place. And I've worked to be really positive. Well, as we inch closer and closer to school starting, some of the hurdles are getting higher and higher and higher. The mountain feels steeper and steeper and steeper. So I wanted to share some of those things with you that are real-time challenges that we're facing right now that make everything that we do just a little bit of more of a heavy lift. And I don't say it to make excuses. I say it just to paint the reality of what the administrators are facing. Because as I mentioned at our last meeting, where I'm asking them to totally rearrange their building, to change things and how they do things in a 2-week period that normally at least takes us 4 months to figure out as we prep from one school year to the next. So the first thing I want to point out is the supply chain issue. We were able, and Larry did a great job on this, he was able to get an order early, and we really thought we were going to beat the rush, for lack of better words, because we knew schools across the nation were going to be scrambling to get Chromebooks. And so we were as proactive could be when we had the finances in place. Well, what happened with all of the social injustice and the different issues that were happening between our supply chain with China is that our devices are there and they're stuck there now. They're not released over yet, or they're in transit, and it just has slowed down everything. So our ability to flip the switch and be one-to-one across this entire school district, which is our plan, is waylaid. And so Mr. Parise has been working like crazy, activating his network to see what can we solve here inside of the city. And he's been able to tap into other school districts that have some devices that we're going to be able to use to mitigate. We're also going to be asking families here in the next couple days to say, if you have a device that you can use to start the year, just use your device. We're going to get you one, but it's going to be a little bit behind. And what does that little bit look like? It's unclear. We've been quoted sometimes, but that is all, you know, everything about this, just things are just always changing. So we're mitigating that, but that's a huge thing. When you need to be ready to pivot online and now you're hearing that your device is on a barge somewhere, it's very, very stressful. So we have multiple plans in place, but it's certainly a challenge that we are activating. I showed you earlier the plexiglass thing that Mr. Parise and his team are creating. We are lucky to have very skilled craftsmen who can just about make anything for us. And we've been ordering plexiglass and making these all summer. Well, it's just, there's not enough, and so we're still working on that. But getting plexiglass in our hands is harder. And so even solutions we have can be activated as fast as we want them to be made. Now, I will say our PPE equipment has been coming in, and so we are, luckily from FEMA, from all of our regional resources, as well as the vendors that we've been able to purchase from, like we have masks and gloves and gowns for our clinics, and I'm sure there's other things that we have. The hand sanitizer, the equipment for cleaning, and the different sanitizers. All that has come in well, but these two are pretty big stumbling blocks for us that are challenging. I'll add the continued evolution of new updated information as part of the mandates and orders. I feel like that, playing who's on first all the time. We're always just trying to remember now, what's the status of that mandate? Did that change? Is that in the new version, in the old version? We are working hard to keep it straight. But just something as simple as the mask, as I've used as an illustration earlier, has changed multiple times. And so our ability to be confident in what we're doing and make sure that all the layers of people in our organization understand it, it takes a lot of time. And time feels like it's slipping through our fingers. And so we're committed to doing it, but I just want to let you know that it's just, don't they know, like, what's going on at the school? Don't they know what's going on? Well, yeah, we do know what's going on, and it's changing all the time. And so just trying to keep everybody up to date is a real challenge. Athletics. We've been hearing Ohio Athletic Association pushing for us to get on the field all summer. We have been creating protocols here to keep coaches and athletes safe. We've followed all the guidelines, and we've learned some things because we've made some mistakes along the way in following those guidelines. And yet, we still don't have a clear idea about what's happening with athletics. We were supposed to hear on Tuesday what's happening from the governor's office because we were waiting on an order, and that Tuesday came and has gone. In the meantime, a lot of, as you know, college sports shutting down, national things, so we're kind of just caught in this. We don't know what's going to happen. You hear all different things from the governor's office to local to Ohio Athletic Association. Our target is to hear something on Tuesday like that. We've been hearing that again. So that we should be able to then get out more information to our families. So it's stressful. It's not comfortable not knowing. And then you have to, like, we're kind of mid-season almost in many ways, and then you have to react and then undo, change, whatever. So if it were just athletics we were dealing with, that might be one thing. But this is on every topic we have. So. The tracking and monitoring communication system for COVID-19 confirmed cases. And so I keep calling it the superintendent dashboard. There needs to be a certain level of information that I get, that I can have, that I can see as a whole. How are we doing as a district? Are we having staff who are able to report to work? Are we having good attendance for staff? How's the student attendance going? How many cases do we have? How many people are now coming back into our system? There's a level of things that I need to be able to look at, that the health clinics also need to be able to look at, the principals need to be able to look at. And for us to sync all those systems so that we can make decisions is a huge task. It's not like anybody gave us a tracker and said, hey, here's a tool you can use. Like we are creating these things and trying to figure out how to best work our communication, because we've got to be really clear not to be sharing personal identifiable information, and because it's a public health crisis, we have to be sharing information with the right people. And so for one case alone, let's just use elementary because of transportation, a student could have contracted the virus, and that would mean we would communicate to everyone on their bus, as well as that maybe fourth grade classroom that they attend, that Mrs. Smith's fourth grade, but then we would be telling all of the school that there is a case. And so that's 3 levels of communication with one case, with additional contact tracing, which adds a whole other layer of communication. And so I don't share all this to babble or to go into the weeds and burden you, but just to let you know with everything, there are tentacles and different layers of things that we are working through as a system. And because we have turned our district upside down, just to give you a sense, if you look at the WCOA teachers being raising their hand and saying, I want to go and be a virtual teacher, and then we pull them out of the system, and then there are people on in their grade level that were disrupted because of their move and us reshuffling kids. If you add up all the WCO changes, you add up who was disrupted because we had to pull them out of the mix, we're looking at 130 people in our system are teaching something different than they thought they were just a few weeks ago. And so that could mean a different grade level, it could mean a different subject, it could mean a different building. There's various changes there. And why I'm pointing this out is like that's a big enough change in itself, and then you add all these other layers. So our ability to be perfect, meeting every deadline, we are trying our best to make sure that we are under-promising, over-delivering on our communication. We are working hard to get just the things that are normally coming out this time of year, as well as the COVID-related pieces. And it's just getting more and more intense. And the more people we add to our teams, as everyone's starting to trickle back, the reality of it all is setting in more and more. And I just want to make sure I'm conveying that to you, because we're always going to be positive, we're always going to be hopeful, we're always going to build a path that will take us through this challenge. But I just think it's important that you understand some of the nuances. So at this time, I'm going to have Mr. Overby come up. I'll take a break. And as the coordinator, principal, man of the hour, I don't know, the person who's whipping up the largest school in the school district now. The West Clermont Online Academy is the largest school in the school. I thought we had pretty big schools before now. So take it away.
Good evening. Yes, I mentioned that to Mrs. Adams today. As we reach almost 1,800 students in the online academy, we're definitely bigger than the middle school and probably a little bigger than the high school once we for the students that would be going there all day. I'll get into, I just want to remind the board and then our parents that this is going to be almost completely supported by teachers from West Clermont. There might be some unique situations where we have to cover some electives and things like that, but as a whole, we have about 60 teachers right now that are part of the West Clermont Online Academy. I think that's a terrific opportunity for our students and our staff to continue to be part of it and to still meet the needs that they may have. Most of the learning will be asynchronous, and what we mean by that, it's anytime, anywhere on their own. But teachers will be providing feedback, small groups, interventions, communication, and really one of the most important things is connection. How do they connect to those students, those kindergarten through 12th grade students who maybe not have been in a brick and mortar school since March? That's a big thing that I've been harping on with our staff is like, you're connecting with our kids. You're going to spend that time and whatever they need to feel connected to their schools. It's customizable. I'm learning more about the software that we're using. There's going to be opportunities to meet the needs of our diverse learners and some of our other students as well through manipulation of the software in a good way. Sorry, my notes are small. I'm not wearing my glasses, so it's I'm in a bind here. Students are committed for a semester, so those 1,800 students are going to be with us for the first semester. We haven't established a timeline yet of when we will be asking for commitment for the second semester, but I'm thinking around November, right before Thanksgiving. We gotta build a new schedule for the online academy. Just a reminder that the K-5 curriculum does take that caregiver at home being an integral part of the learning experience. We made sure in our final forms, which I'll talk about here in a second, verification that that the parents knew that it's a partnership, especially it's a partnership K-12, but especially at that elementary level. Mrs. Adams did mention attendance, working with our EMIS director and others. 27.5 hours is our target for elementary students of instruction a week, and 30 hours if you're taking 6 classes at the high school would be the target instruction time for the week. What we're thinking on paper, right, you have a plan, 90% of that would be asynchronous and 10% would be synchronous, check-ins, small groups, morning meetings, things like that. And that would be about 30 minutes per day is what that is, 3 hours at both elementary, middle school, and high school. And I mentioned connection before, that connection with your brick and mortar school, that's what we're calling it. The brick and mortar buildings is key. Yearbooks, pictures, things like that. We'll make sure that they're getting the communications. Parents are going to get a communication on Friday or Saturday from their brick and mortar school, and then an update from me on Saturday or Sunday. So they'll be getting some different emails and things like that to stay connected to both. If you want to move on, Mrs. Adams.
Yes.
Right now, this is late. This is as of this morning. We had over 1,750 students. We're at 1,796, and 80 unconfirmed. 81, I think, is where we're unconfirmed right now. To be honest, this has consumed an immense amount of time over the last 10 days to register 1,800 students. We implemented a new process, Final Forms. Many of you some of you up on the stage are athletic parents, know about Final Forms. Well, there's a lot of benefits to using Final Forms for verification, from form sign-off and things like that. So not only did we ask parents to raise their hand to be a part of an online academy, but then putting a new process of Final Forms. I'm not sure how we would have done it without it, to be quite honest with you, but we are confirmed at 1,796 students. We've had some in and out, to be honest with you. Our target was right around 1,850 is who have applied. We've had some students not drop out of school, but drop off the roster, and we've had some families come into the roster. So that number is holding pretty steady with where we're at the 18. I think we'll end up right around 1,850 when it's all said and done. So almost 800 at the elementary, almost 500-ish at both the middle school and the high school. Today was an exciting day. I had a meeting with the 60 teachers that will be part of the online academy. We met from about 4 to 5:30 today via Google Meet, and they had some great questions. I saw some enthusiasm in a digital space. They filled out a couple surveys for me already of what their questions are. I was hoping to get to most of those questions today. We have a professional development plan slated for the online academy folks, and some of that will be in person, but most of that will be online as well, as they have some flexibility with how they attend. Essentially, we're having flexibility across the district. There are some face-to-face meetings at the building level, but a lot of the webinars and things, for instance, Child Focus is going to deliver some social-emotional learning support for us all through Zoom that teachers are going to be able to connect through during that week. On Thursday evening at the latest, we'll have our opening parent communication for the online academy. Lots of questions. We'll hope to get some of those answered and get to a point where parents are, I feel an immense amount of trust, to be honest with you, that parents have chosen this. The emails that I've got have been very supportive, and lots of thank yous, and just support and thankfulness that we're able to offer something like this. But this opening parent communication is very important because there's some technology pieces to it. There's some supplies, some other things that we'll talk about in that email as well, and then introduce our team to them as well. I'll be honest, Mrs. Adams talked about barriers, and when you're registering 1,800 people in August and then getting them scheduled, I spent about an hour and a half with the middle school and high school counselors working through how we'll get these students scheduled into the right classes, especially those juniors and seniors who need specific courses for graduation. Some might need 3, others might need more than 3 to make sure we get it right. So honestly, we're probably looking at a phase-in of classes over the first week or so across the continuum with the online academy, where cores will be in, the students will have access to cores, and electives will come, probably prioritizing seniors down the list because of just how we are usually buttoned up and ready to go by this date when it comes to scheduling. And when you're scheduling a high school plus an online academy, certain barriers come in the way. So,
Well, and I want to add something about that just for a second. And this has been true in our district and all districts for years, but it's like more intense at the moment. You used to have a teacher, like Jim, you would know this. You get your class list, you get out your stack of books, and on that first day of school, you're going over your rules and you're handing out your books, and that's kind of the first day. Well, gone are those kinds of starts to school, because you have to have everything rostered, and then it digitally connects to every tool that you have. And so until you get step 1 done, you can't connect to all these other parts and pieces that need to be flipped on. And getting that synced up for a school that it exists on top of the school you already have is complicated, because we can't have you showing as a roster in somebody's class when you're actually a virtual student in this person's class. And how you report to the state versus how you report to the people in the building versus how it ends up looking on a report card for a parent are all different things and nuances that we are literally coming up with in a matter of 2 weeks. And so there's just so many details to layer a school in on top of schools. And it's just not so simple as, we'll just pass out the books. There is no such thing as just passing out the books anymore.
So we're anticipating a smooth start, but it might be a slow start to the online piece. And I think that would be acceptable as our students that are going back to our brick and mortar schools are going to have a lot of connection and a lot of learning on new processes and procedures and things. So we'll have a plan. We're working really hard to get that plan moving as fast as we can, but that is a barrier to getting kids in the right classes that they need, especially at the high school level for graduation. And then we complicate it just a bit more when we say, if possible, you could come in for a class, let's say band. And so to layer, they're actually in a virtual world, an online world, and then a face-to-face world is a complication as well. But every day we're making more steps. I'm certainly not answering every question that's coming my way. We're doing our best to get them answered. But right now, by hopefully tomorrow, we have a roster. And now we move through and get to the next steps. So it's considering where we are, it's exciting work, but at the same time, I know it's important work that we get right. So I'd rather be right and be very methodical in our approach as we get this online academy up and running. I'll tell you, the staff is they're ready. They want to learn, and they want to be ready for our kids in 2 weeks.
In our administrative meetings, we start every meeting just getting ourselves mentally, emotionally prepared, because we know our mission, probably more important than ever, is to get our kids back to school. And we're dedicated to that. And so even when we're overwhelmed or when we're talking about all the details, we are committed to figuring out. And that's why people are working crazy hours all through the weekends to shine our floors, to take care of things from a technological infrastructure, and to support teachers. I had a teacher on the phone with me today in tears. Just I can't take one more change, one more thing. And it's challenging, and everybody, you have to just meet people where they are and work through it. The considerations and next steps, just to let you know, I've shared some of these things with you, but this will be in the next 4 or 5 days. Top of mind will be finalizing our student enrollment, staffing, and scheduling. Although that's always kind of a moving target, and you've got to figure out who's moved to another county or another state and haven't told us yet. I mean, there's all that to figure out. But here in the last couple weeks of August, you get better and better with that precision. If more people come on for the online academy at this point, we're able to take more of those kids. So now is the time. If parents want to do that, tell us now so we can continue to prepare. It will get harder and harder and harder the further we get into it, because things are getting a little more in concrete. We have the remote learning school designation. That'll be something I'll probably bring to you at our next board meeting. I don't think it takes 2 readings. I think it'll just be a one and done kind of agenda item. But it's the requirement that we have to do to meet the state's expectations for what remote learning looks like, for our attendance, for how we're going to educate, and it's our commitment to the state as to how our plan plays out. Our professional learning for our staff begins on August 20th, and just leading up to that point, there's lots of meetings. I know that I'm meeting tomorrow with Mrs. McLeese and her child nutrition team, just trying to get everybody comfortable, getting them understanding their roles and responsibilities and how valuable and important they are to the mission of the school system. The nurses and health clinic aides all met today. They're going to be receiving some training from the Clermont County Health Department later this week or next. The days are all a blur to me. We're going to be pulling all of the administrative assistants together later this week. And so we're just trying to meet teams of people and get them moving along. Lance and I met with the head custodians the other day, and they are good. They feel supported, and they're cranking out work, and I'm very proud of them. We have the technology distribution process. So Larry created a plan for Plan A, C, D, whatever it was, and now with the news of the devices not coming in, he's redoing all that. So within the next 5 to 8 days, a brand new technology process will be unfolded. And again, this is going to require models coming in from other districts. It's going to require, people who have our devices to bring them back to us. And Also, the opening up the possibility of BYOD, bring your own device. We are going to allow that and just say, just for a short amount of time, if you can bring your own device in. We're not saying everybody run to Staples tonight or run to Best Buy, like, we're not saying that, but if you have the ability, because you already have a device, we're just saying, just bring it and we'll work until we can get a new device in your hand. Of course, we have to prioritize the online academy students first. We'll be prioritizing seniors, and then we'll work from there. Preparing transportation routes. Mr. Perry and Peterman are working very hard on covering all those bases. We do expect that we'll probably have less ridership this year because some parents will just choose for their students to be dropped off, just to take one more layer away. And so we'll have to be responsive to all of that in terms of staff in our parking lot, traffic flow, Clough neighborhood. Clough's back, and there's going to be traffic on Clough again, so that's going to be something that we kind of went away for a year. That's going to be back and needing attention. And then we're asking our staff to prepare virtual open houses. So they'll be creating little mini videos so that families can get on, connect names with faces. And again, that's another one of those, you hate to handle open house this way, because this is where you get that personal connection with families, and it's just such an important step that we're having to do in a different way. And we certainly can do that. It's just, you just have to go the extra mile to then build those connections. And so we're going to be asking a lot of our staff, as Mike said, and as I've mentioned, their attitudes are great. I've been getting on with a number of staff, 250-ish, over the course of the last couple weeks, and just kind of listening to their concerns. I share a little bit about what I know now and listen to them. And I would say, like, they're just working hard to wrap their brains around it. But they are being professional, they are excited, they're full of anxiety, and we're all figuring out how we come together on this. So I think you'd be very proud of them. And, you know, each day it just gets a little more real as to of how much our life really is changing. So. Communication, we're going to continue to be strong with our communication. That Wolfpack Hub, Jeffrey is going to continue to make it more and more robust, and we want it to be the one-stop place that parents can go. We want it to be simple and slick so that it's easy to navigate, and we'll be seeking feedback on that as the year goes on. And again, why are we here? We open our meetings every time we have an administrative meeting with, like, just centering ourselves to make sure that we know our mission, our purpose is to get our kids back to school, because we commit to excellence with every learner, every day, in every way. And it's now more important than ever that we stay, dedicated to that cause and overcome our fears and mitigate any kinds of safety issues or barriers that are in our way so that we can support our students to the best of our ability. Again, there is risk in coming back to school, and that's why I say these plans will continue to be re-examined based on the changing information and the conditions, the community spread of the virus, and any recommendations that we get from our public health office, the governor's office, or anywhere we get it. We just have to be agile. That's really our word of the month, agile and responsive to all the different indicators. And we have to understand, what do we control, what can we influence, and then do that to the hilt, do it with the best of our ability. And so that will be my message to staff, is let's control what we can control, and let's do this together. So, questions from you guys?
Has that 60 teachers been like the goal from the start?
Well, it's hard to have like a goal from the start, because it was all based on, like, well, who's coming in. So we had originally planned with the 15%, then the numbers slowly were growing, and so we've just been trying to match that teacher to student ratio for online, which can be a little bit different than brick and mortar schools, and then pulling as we need to.
Is that going to be the number, or could that still change?
We think it is holding pretty steady. It always could change. I don't foresee plucking any more out of the schools. They've been disruptive enough, and they need to get settled to get their minds around starting the school year, so we need to be looking for other options. And so you have options to hire, you have options to look at the third-party vendor teachers in unique situations, the outlier, elective kinds of things. And that's why, when Mike's saying, okay, just getting everybody registered is one thing, now getting everybody scheduled is another thing. And so it's those details, the devil's in the details there, that will emerge. So we think we're pretty good. We think we've provided some margin and some cushion here. But until it's scheduled, we don't know. Did I answer that okay for you?
Yeah.
You good with that? Okay.
And that probably helps with the
Social
buildings
distancing?
too, yeah.
Yeah, what we were worried about truly is that just at that 15% doesn't really take you to the place where social distancing becomes more of a reality. With the 1,800 coming out, that is freeing up some space in classrooms to spread out some more. And it does make that more of a reality. 'Cause there was that tricky place that we were in for a while, that we could have had 4 sections, let's say, of 3rd grade math, and then you pull one of those teachers out, and then that would end up putting maybe too many kids in a classroom. And we really haven't found that to be true. It's been pretty nice overall. And there's some outlier places that, and Dr. Fultz is working with the principals on that. And that's probably what he's doing right now. I don't know where he is, but he's probably doing that right now.
I wanted to make a comment based on your all's efforts, and thank you. There's a lot of schools in the tri-state area and throughout the state of Ohio that is not offering an option to our families or their families. And it would have been an easier route for us to take, just say that we're going 5 days in person. And if that's not a suitable option for you, then that would be upon you to find the option that works best for your family. And kudos to you guys for not allowing that to happen. You've worked very diligently since March to make the spring the best that it could be, and then continue to work through the summer so that we do have options for our families. And we're hearing a lot of very strong opinions on how we should not be going 5 days a week, and we have other very strong opinions that we should absolutely be going 5 days a week. So I am very appreciative of us giving our community the option to do what's best for them. And I know it's not been easy for anybody on the team, and you guys have done a fantastic job. And so we want to just personally say thank you for that, and really appreciate the hard work and the hours that you've put in to make this happen. So thank you.
Thank you for that. And it really is, we want, we know we can't be all things to all people, but we did want to have that option. We wanted to keep our students in West Clermont to the best of our ability. We want them to have that sense of community and that sense of we are here for you, and you're not, just because you're in the academy, the online academy, doesn't mean like you're off on some island and we don't care about you anymore. It's important to stay connected, and we want that feel. It's just not easy, that's for sure.
So with the online academy, with the staff members that we have there, were we able to accommodate everybody who wanted to be a virtual instructor, or was there any instances where, or did we have too many who wanted to do that, or not enough, and we had to ask for more people to come onto the virtual academy?
I would
or-
say yes and to all of that. We had people, because of ADA requirements or personal requirements of whatever nature, whether that's caring for somebody at home, their own personal health, whatever it may be, we were able to honor all those requests. There were some situations where we needed to say, hey, raise your hand, because we had some people who said, I'll do either, so you got those, but then we still needed a couple people to raise their hand. And then once you get the online academy set, there's lots of deck chairs to be arranged everywhere else. So there are people, some people are being moved and they're not happy about where they're going. They might not like the grade level they're going to, they might not like the subject area. I mean, it's not, the numbers are working out, but the emotion and all that, that's not beautiful. That's still messy, and that's hard, and it's a heavy lift to think you're one thing all along, and then it changes. So it's not unsurmountable, but it's a very, teachers are by nature planners and organizers, and they think everything through, and this really, like, you add this change on top of COVID changes, and it sends you spinning.
Well, and I do appreciate, and I'm sure the rest of the board does too, everybody's commitment to the district and the students and being as flexible as they can. And we know that there's the grumblings, and everybody has the grumblings in their own homes and jobs and all that. And I know that we're just really appreciative of everybody's efforts from top down for getting us where we are. As far as the students in the online academy, and I don't recall about like clubs and activities before or after school, and if those were kind of put on hold for now, or
It's
if.
kind of a combination depending on the nature of the beast. There's not like a hard and fast answer for it. I know we were trying to like, just let's get the daytime figured out.
Right.
But then you're balancing that with athletics and still not knowing. So there's still some decisions that are probably still hanging out there until we fully know the athletic answer. That can then put us, other performing, like music programs in place or the clubs. The intention always, though, is that the academy kids could partake in those and participate. And then that's why they're gonna get that weekly brick and mortar principal email as well as the one from Mike, so they can stay, up to date on all of that.
And then just a general question from not only the online academy, but across the board. I mean, and you may have mentioned this before, but like the beginning of school is not necessarily a, you know, as you said, you pass out the books and you jump right into the, you know, to the instruction. And there's gonna be a lot of proverbial hand holding. You know, kids have been out of school for 5 months today. I mean, I think today was, or March 17th or 16th is when we canceled it. So it's been 5 months since, you know, kids have been in the classroom. And I mean, it's, for some of them, it might be like riding a bike, but others, they might need the training wheels. And I think you had mentioned that there's gonna be a lot of getting kids back and, you know, into the routine and add in the new routine of, with the facial coverings and the social distancing and all that. And can you talk to that as far as?
I can do it in a global way. You know,
Yeah.
each teacher, this is where their magic comes to life because it's how they uniquely connect with kids. But what we want to do basically is give teachers more permission to say, slow down and get this part right. Yes, we need to know if they can do their math facts, and yes, we need to know what they lost out of their algebra class, and yes, we need to make sure they know their terms in English, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Yes, we need to know all that. And we need to know it faster and louder and better than we've ever known it. But not the minute they walk in the door. The minute they walk in the door, we need to be reconnecting with them, listening to them, helping them be seen, helping them be heard, having a voice to just process. Some kids have really, like their parents have kept them very isolated and they just haven't been able to socially connect with kids. And so just offering up practical ways to learn how to do that again. I mean, I can remember watching my daughter just when she first started engaging with friends again, as she's working with in her sports and all that, and just seeing like they hesitate. Like you walk up into a circle and you're like, ooh, but then you back down. And so just learning your like appropriate body language and just ways to encounter that is, you know, acceptable in this new way. And not, you know, there's some, you know, I've talked to kids that are like, they're so worried they're gonna get in trouble if they go like this with their mask for a second. They're just worried they're gonna have to go to the principal's office, and going to the principal's office is terrible. And so it's like, we gotta get everybody comfortable with taking care of themselves, following the rules, but doing it in a way that takes care of who they are as a person. And so it's just this balancing act all the time that we'll be working through. And so, again, it's teachers, I think, are excellent at this. It's just sometimes they feel pressure from administrators, from whatever, the curriculum schedule for the month, whatever it is, just to like get right to it. And we're not saying don't teach anything academically. We're just saying those social emotional moments, those relationship building moments matter right now more than ever, and tap into that and go deeply. Don't brush over that part. And then the time will come for the assessments to kind of understand where people are so that we can help to fill those gaps. We're just trying to take the pressure off. There's enough pressure here, so let's just take that pressure off a little bit.
And I think my last comment is, I think one of the biggest comments that I've been seeing over the last few weeks is the daily checks and then at home and how the COVID symptoms are the same as any other sickness. And how do we reiterate to folks to, you know, reiterate the fact that, you know, it's, you know, the symptoms are the symptoms, but it's, you know, parents know their kids, and if someone has seasonal allergies and they get these types of symptoms, that you have to look for, you know, the out of the normal symptoms. I mean, how do we,
It's very hard because there's people that never present symptoms, and then there's these symptoms that apply to everything.
right.
It couldn't get any more gray and confusing than that. It just can't. And we're going to have to be working, that was one of the things I think I mentioned, that the health center personnel were really concerned about. Because, you know, Natasha always comes in with a runny nose in allergy season, and she's doing it again. And so should we put her in, you know, sequester her in a room or not? I mean, there's some decision-making. There's going to be common sense, and there's going to be, like, protocols that we follow. And we're going to have to trust each other. We have to trust parents every day to do these symptom checks. And I'll be honest, people know that sometimes families, you know, pop in a Tylenol and send them to school and just say, you know, you'll ride this out. This is not the year for riding it out.
Right.
This is not the year for being casual about this. And so I think it'll feel probably an over-the-top response from the school. I think it'll feel that way. And I think that's how we have to be as we enter into this. And being more cautious than not is going to be our rally cry versus casual, we don't care. And so, and I think with time we'll learn, and I think with time it'll evolve. And I can understand why parents are a little bit white-knuckled about that. And that's why that communication from school to home is so important. That's why we're trying to streamline some things, to simplify, as just building relationships with parents are now harder than ever. It's extra hurdles, extra steps. And we want people to be comfortable, but it's hard just say be comfortable, and then they feel that way. I find when I've met with some parents, I've met with some grandparents, I've been on the phone with people, and I feel like the more I talk to them, like you talk it through and you start to be able to picture it, the more their anxiety comes down. And so it's just literally about all of us in the organization being able to have that hand reach out to people and just talk them through it. They might not like what I'm saying, but everybody that's talked with me walks away feeling heard and just feeling like, okay, they do have a plan, and that's the kind of feedback they've been giving me. But I don't know, David, it's just going to be hard because it's not like we have full-time professional nurses and doctors who work here.
Right.
Right.
Mrs. Adams, what I would envision is us seeing an increase of students that normally would have perfect attendance, possibly getting up in the morning and not feeling their best, and maybe parents keeping them home, overly cautious of the situation. And by lunchtime, they're feeling well again, you know, they're feeling more like themselves, but they're still keeping up with their work and all of that. So it's not considered to be an absence if they're still engaged. But I'm hopeful that parents take that caution and say that. But along those same lines, are we going to do a better job than we normally do when we're in person of making sure that those assignments are online and students can keep up with them adequately versus trying to backtrack and try to keep up without having that easily accessible?
So I will say there are certain grade levels of teachers that have been doing that pretty faithfully and pretty regularly as part of their routine for multiple years. And for some staff, this is a newer exercise. There have been requirements and expectations laid out that basically say your brick and mortar school needs to be ready to pivot to online school at the blink of an eye. So you need to get into the routine of teaching the kids and the parents where to look for assignments, where, you know, how your flow works. And that will be some of the routines that they'll build next to the social emotional learning of just building routines to know what to expect. And so that'll be a really intentional effort. And that just takes time. That takes practice. It takes doing it. You can't just talk about it. You have to do it. It's learned by doing. And that'll be part of the recipe for success. Because we do want students to be able to tap in. If they're absent, we want them to be able to tap into the classroom and keep the regimen of learning flowing. We don't want to see big disruptions for that. But we know every house is different, every situation is different, so we'll continue to work with kids. But that just attendance is a gray matter now. It used to be real clear. If you're there, you're there. And it's not that clear anymore because of the different opportunities that we can open up. There's something else you said, Dave. I don't know. Did you ask me a question I didn't answer? Because I felt like there was something else I needed to attend to. Maybe it was you, Tammy. Is there something I didn't answer?
I don't think so.
Okay. Maybe you just made me think of something.
That could be. I usually bring up way more than I get people to start. But I was going to say, I was going to add in that, and I had seen a comment in general, it was some quote or something, but that, you know, we may never know if we're overreacting or being overly cautious, because if we're, you know, if we're taking too many steps and to prevent the spread or keep people healthy. We may never know the extent of if what we're doing is too much, but we'll definitely know if it's not enough. And people will get sick.
Like, we've
people
had
will-
cases this summer. Like,
Yeah.
we know that it's here in Clermont County, we're in red. That means the conditions are right for community spread. And so the importance of everyone following the protocols is of highest, utmost importance. And we're going to make mistakes. We're not going to be perfect. There is risk in coming back. But we know there are things that we can do to create a learning environment that can be safe. We know that. We're seeing that at grocery stores. We're seeing that at places of businesses, at offices. There are things that we can do. Now, we don't know when you bring all the children into one, children by nature are touching each other, and they like to be close. And how hard will it be to separate all that out? Age is gonna matter, developmentally responsive, behaviors of kids. It's all gonna be relative. And we'll have to study it, and we'll have to, huddle after each day and kind of pause and reflect what worked well, what didn't work well. We're not just gonna throw everybody into it and just say, follow the rule or playbook and we're done. We did all our work this summer. We're gonna keep, iterating and doing what we need to. And if we have to shut down one school because operationally it can't be open, or because the spread is more significant there, then we may be shutting down one school versus all schools. And that's really complicated for me to fully wrap my brain around and for the community to wrap their brain around right now, I know. And that will be learned by doing and figuring that out, because I will tell you, it really is, it can be 3 staff in an elementary, and I use that as the really concrete one. It could be 3 staff in a middle school or high school. That if we can't get it covered, our ability to operate is compromised. If we're doing some things to get some backup for our health clinic assistants, but if our assistants are all going on quarantine because of cases that they've come in contact with and they can't physically come to school, that's an operational deficit problem for us. So there are lots of avenues where something could go awry. That doesn't mean that spread is pervasive through a whole building, but that we've got to shut it down because we can't operate it.
And with that, if you had to shut down one of the elementary buildings, you'd still allow there to be some flexibility with the middle school and the high school students that may be the caregiver, if you will, for the day while the parents are still working. They would have the ability to flip over themselves to be at home too, right?
Yeah, we'll have to figure those kinds of things out, and it'll be case by case, working with families in the situation, and the reasons why you can be absent. I mean, that list has certainly grown a little bit with our new policies.
If it was operational, could it be just like a 2-week deal?
Yeah, in talking to the health commissioner, a close down that would happen from like that level, if it had to be countywide or pervasive in any way, it would be a 4 to 12 week kind of period of time. For us, it could be a 2-week. You don't want to have Monday we're on and Tuesday we're off and Wednesday is a maybe. Like, we've got to be as predictable as possible for families, and that is certainly what we'll do. It's just right now, it's difficult to have that crystal ball, honestly.
So we're not the Cincinnati Reds?
Right. Right. Any other questions? Okay, so under 5.05 is superintendent committees. I know we haven't had any specific meetings, but would anybody like to share anything or ask any questions in your topic area? Okay, so I know I've said a lot, but I just want to highlight and first of all, thank the administrative team. They are an incredible group of people. They just keep telling me yes. Doesn't matter how heavy of a lift I ask of them. They just say, yes, we'll figure it out. They're incredible people. The staffs that they're leading are slowly coming back. And I'm just grateful for the new teacher orientation that David Fultz was able to walk us through the other day. You know, everyone had to be socially distant the whole day. It's not even a fun way to do it all the time. But their spirits were up. Their attitudes were great. And people are happy to be in West Clermont. And so we are grateful to have our staff trickling back slowly but surely, and are grateful for their efforts and their courage. And I just thank you for your support for them. That's all I have.
Okay. All right, moving on to board business. Mr. Chumley, you want to start us off?
They say adversity builds strength. We're gonna be the Incredible Hulk by 2021. I'm happy to be back in this comfortable chair instead of my COVID pit. And I'm looking forward to Wednesday and cutting that ribbon or watching the ribbon be cut, and looking forward to kids being back in the classroom. Exciting.
All right. Mrs. Delane?
I am very excited about Wednesday. Being a previous Clough parent, it's going to be exciting to see the changes, but there's a lot of stories wrapped up in those walls that are still always going to be there in those memories. So it's going to be exciting to see the new facility and the renovation. Thank you to our staff for your courage, your flexibility. Everyone's coming back on Thursday, and just one day at a time. Take a deep breath and one step forward, and just we can do this. We can all do this together, and it's going to be a great thing. And our kids are going to be so very excited, whether they're seeing their teacher on the screen through the virtual academy or in person in their respective buildings. It's going to be a great thing, and we will get through this together. Mrs. Adams and your team, you guys, you are lifting all of us up and getting us where we need to be, and it is greatly appreciated. Slow and steady is going to win the race, and we are going to be the Incredible Hulk. But as Mrs. Adams has said many times, we don't want to be the first ones to cross the line. We want to be there and have done it right. So please, everyone, parents, community, students, patience. Patience is a virtue, and we really need to have it. And I know everyone's trying to plan their life, but we've all been trying to plan what's going to happen for your kids. And as Mrs. Adams has said, as soon as you write it on paper, you might as well just wad it up and throw it in the garbage, because something else has changed. Things are changing every day, every minute, every hour. So please be patient. You will get your bus schedules. You will get your class schedules. You will find out how you're supposed to get into the school, which door you're supposed to go in and out of. It all will come, but it's happening every day, like Mr. Overby said. It's got to happen in steps for it to get there. So just please be patient with all of us, and we will get there.
Mr. Shepp?
I'd like to, Mrs. Adams, thank you and your staff. You guys have never ceased to amaze. You guys continually outperform expectations, and I appreciate everything that you and district leadership team, the administrators, the staff, everybody from top to bottom. I can't thank everybody enough. Mr. Romano, I'm happy to have a face-to-face meeting now. I mean, even though we're face covers and all that, but so I look forward to our first finance committee meeting too. So welcome again. Thank you. And yeah, I think just to reiterate what Mrs. Delaney said is, you know, slow wins the race. Well, slow may not win the race, but slow will get us to the finish line and not have to take a whole bunch of breaks. And you know, we're just gonna learn by doing, and you know, things are gonna change. You know, whatever we said today might not be the same that's, you know, a month from now or even a week from now. Things are gonna be changed, and people have to be flexible. And you know, everybody wants normal back, and we just got to get through it to get normal back, and you can't have normal and get through it at the same time. So hopefully everybody can have patience, as Mrs. Delaney said. Thank you all.
Mr. Rudy?
I'm the eternal optimist, so I think I feel good about everything. And even though all these procedures, et cetera, are hard to deal with, I'm looking at the good side of it, the fact that I'm learning how to use technology to improve my classroom instruction. Do it Google Classroom especially. And I think that's gonna change the teaching field for the better. Just like if somebody is homesick, I'm gonna have all my stuff on there and they're gonna be able to go ahead and do it. I plan to do that no matter what the circumstances are. So thank you for everything.
Anything else? Okay. Do you know when our next board meeting is?
Momentarily.
The weekend, or the week after Labor Day.
The week after?
15?
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah,
14th.
It's almost a month away, yeah.
Yeah, it's a month away.
It's the 14th,
That's what I thought.
until we call a special one in between.
Got it?
Right.
Okay.
We might get real special in between now and then.
I have nothing further besides inviting people to join us for our next board meeting on September the 14th. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Mr. Rudy?
Second.
Mr. Chumley? Roll call?
Mr. Rudy?
Yes.
Mr. Chumley?
Yes.
Mrs. Brinkman?
Yes.
Mr. Schaff?
Yes.
Mrs. Delaney?
Yes.
5 yes. We're adjourned.
Motion approved, and we will see you on the 14th, and thank you for joining us this evening.
Okay.
Good night.
Since I waved online, I have to wave in person now.